Hello, dear students. I am Samir Velankar. Let's see a very interesting question asked in GATE 2013 on candidate key. We are again given a table that is relation R, which is having 8 attributes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And it is given that R contains only atomic values. Just don't worry about this. But then they have given us functional dependencies. And even you don't worry about this line. Trust me, I will tell you what F plus means, closure of the FD set. The question asked is, if these are the FDs given, then how many candidate keys exist? So I put down the question just after some gap over here. How many candidate keys are there? 3, 4, 5, or 6? Because I want some space here for working. Now just see, again using our technique that we used in the earlier video, we will see the RHS of all the FDs, and we will list down what are the keys which appear in the RHS. You can see A appears, B, C appears, D does not appear, you watch anywhere, D, then E appears, E, F, G, H. So out of 8 attributes, 7 appear on the right hand side, but D never appears on the right hand side. That means nothing can bring in D in the closure set. Nothing can determine D. That means D has to be part of the candidate key. Isn't it so? Now, I am not saying D is the candidate key, but D has to be the part of candidate key. But if you find D closure, thinking that D is the candidate key, let's say you find D closure. Now, watch that D closure is definitely going to contain D, and it's not going to bring in anything because D is neither on the left hand side also. D does not determine anything from the given functional dependencies. So D alone is not the candidate key. So what are the possibilities? AD can be candidate key, correct? Or BD can be candidate key, or CD, or ED, or FD, or it can be GD or HD, isn't it? GD or HD. But D has to be part of the candidate key. Now, if you find AD closure, I will find it. AD closure will contain A and D, and notice D, A determines BC, check the FD. So BC comes in, correct? Then you note that B determines CFH. So CFH, C is already there, FH comes in, correct? And then you watch that F here determines E and G. So E and G also come in. So you watch that we have all 8 attributes in AD closure. So AD closure is one of the candidate keys. Okay. Similarly, if you find BD closure, I'm not finding it, just find BD closure. BD closure will also contain all the keys, all the attributes. So BD is also a candidate key. Let's find CD closure. Now CD closure will contain CD. And now watch the left hand side of all the functional dependencies. We have in the first functional dependency, we have C but along with H on the left hand side. But H is not there in the current closure. So we can't bring in G. And you watch all the dependencies, we can't bring in anything. So CD is the only closure of CD plus. Then CD is not the candidate key. But you find out ED closure. If you find ED closure, it will contain ED, and watch out that E is going to bring in A and A is going to bring in BC, isn't it? And B will bring CFH. C is already there, I'll bring in FH. And finally, F will bring E and G, but E is already there, so G will arrive. And we have all 8 attributes. That means ED is the third candidate key. So we already have 3 candidate keys, AD, BD, and ED. Similarly, if you find FD closure, FD closure is going to contain FD, and watch out that F is going to bring EG, isn't it? So E will bring in A will bring in BC, and B will bring in CFH. C is already there, F is already there, H joins, and all 8 attributes. So FD is the fourth candidate key. So we already have four candidate keys. In the question, they have asked 3, 4, 5, or 6. We already have 4. Now let's find out AD, BD, CD, ED, FD we have found. Now let's see GD closure. I hope you are remembering that D has to be the part of the candidate key because D is never on the right hand side of any FD. So that's why D is inherent part of all these candidate keys. Now, if you find GD closure, you will not get all the 8 attributes. Just find out. GD will contain GD. And now you see the left hand side of all the functional dependencies is not going to bring in anything other than G and D. So GD is not the candidate key. Similarly, you find out HD is also not the candidate key. Well, these are the only attributes that we can join with D. So by this time, we know that we have 4 candidate keys. I'll write down again. The candidate keys we found are AD, then we found BD as the candidate key, then ED and FD. Okay. Now you know there is no sense in adding anything to this candidate key. Like there is no question of asking, is A, D, and B the candidate key? No, it has to be, because if AD is the candidate key, and if you join something more to this, then you will be recognizing all the attributes. In fact, ABD will be a super key. Similarly, nothing will go along with BD or ED or FD. But who were not the candidate keys? Let's enlist them. CD was not the candidate key. Then GD was not the candidate key, and HD was not the candidate key. Okay, so these three were not the candidate key. So what you might ask is, what if I put something more to this? This is not the candidate key. So what if I put one more attribute to this CD? Will it recognize all the attributes? So you will be driven to find out ACD closure. Wait. Here is the fun part. You are saying CD is not the candidate key. So let me check a bigger key. Let me put A in this. But hello, A and D is already the candidate key, isn't it? Then there is no sense in finding ACD. ACD is going to be super key. Similarly, there is no sense in finding BCD, isn't it? Putting B in the CD, because B and D is the candidate key. Similarly, there is no sense in finding ECD, and there is no sense in finding FCD because FD is also FCD. FD is also candidate key, isn't it? So you can't put A, you can't put B, you can't put C, of course, because C and D is what we are talking about. You can't put D, A, B, C, D. You can't put E and you can't put F. But you can try. You can try putting with CD. You can try putting GCD, isn't it? Because G and D is not the part of any candidate key. And you can try with the H also, HCD, isn't it? These two closures you can find out whether these three keys together form the candidate key. But when you find closure of this, I'm not doing that. But if you find closure of this, you will not get all 8 attributes. That means anything joined along with CD is not going to give us any more keys. Are you understanding? So HCD is not the candidate key, GCD is not the candidate key. So you might be driven to think that okay, HCD is not the candidate key, fine, and GCD is not the candidate key. Can I join some more thing on HCD? Wait, you can't join A because AD is the candidate key. You can't join B because BD is the candidate key. You can't put C, CD is already there in this, isn't it? You can't put E because ED is the candidate key, isn't it? Then you can't put F either because FD is the candidate key. And then what remains is G. If you put G here, GHCD, if you find out the closure of this, you check that GHCD closure is again not going to contain all the attributes. So along with cd, if you join anything, you are not getting any more candidate key. Similarly, I'm not working on this entire problem. You just tried. GD was not the candidate key. So if you join anything with GD, if you put anything in this GD, what can you put, by the way? You can put A, no sense, because A, D together is a candidate key. So this will be super key. What if you put B, B, G, D? No sense again. What you can put, is only you can put those attributes which are not the part of candidate key, isn't it? So what you can put here is H, you can put HGD, you can find, because HD is not the candidate key, isn't it? HD. Watch this. But if you find HGD closure, you will not get all 8 attributes. So joining anything with GD is not a candidate key. Similarly, joining anything with HD is also not a candidate key. So we have only 4 candidate keys in this problem, and the answer to this question is option B. 4 candidate keys we have got. Obviously, it was a lengthy question, and I remember students solving this in gate question required around 4.5 to 5 minutes to solve this. But the first trick, everybody knew that it has to be 4 keys. After that, looking at more keys was a bit difficult. But I guess you have followed and you will try it on your own later on also. Thank you very much.